What's up, my secret place people? I'm back with another episode today. Today we're continuing the conversation about worship and what it is, what it means, and how do we do it, and what does the Bible have to say. So last week I kind of shared a word that was meant for a workshop, but I think that it is helpful and it can be maybe just a helping resource for maybe some of those of you that are watching that are in worship ministry or getting started, and you want to become a little bit more refined and polished and all of those things. And so go check that out if you didn't already watch it. But this week I want to dive into worship a little bit more. Worship is very personal. God is a very personal God, and he desires a relationship with us, right? He desires to be in communion with us. And that is a communication. It is a line of communication. And so when we think about worship, when we talk about worship, our lifestyle and our life should be a sacrifice of worship unto the Lord, and it should be offered up in worship in whatever we're doing. So we talked a little bit about last week. We're not just replicating other people's praise. Just because everyone else is clapping their hands doesn't mean, oh, I'm just clapping my hands for no reason. No, it comes from a posture in your heart of thanksgiving, joy, gratefulness, gratitude, all of those things. And so we're not just replicating what we see without like any rhyme or reason behind it, just because, oh, well, this is just what we do. No, let's understand the reason why we praise God in different ways and why some people will shout at the top of their lungs. It's because of it's out of a place of internal maybe gratitude or just joy or freedom. And they're expressing that outwardly. So we don't want to be people that are empty praisers where we're just going through the motions, doing the clapping, the shouting, the dancing, and just, but there's no heart posture lining up with our actions on the inside. So we want to be worshiping in spirit and truth, right? I want to read Psalms 102 through 5. Worship the Lord with gladness. Come before him with joyful songs. Know that the Lord is God. It is he who made us, and we are his. We are his people, the sheep of his pasture. Enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. Give thanks to him and praise his name, for the Lord is good and his love endures forever. His faithfulness continues through. We want to develop the lifestyle and the second nature of worshiping God in all that we do. 1, because he made us. 2, because he sent his son to save us. And 3, because he desires a relationship with us, a personal relationship with us. No other God in any other religion desires a personal relationship with their creation. And in every other religion, it's always the people trying to reach their God, not their God trying to reach them. Where did all of these things because he desires to have our heart. He desires to have our lives and have relationship and connection with us. So when we worship, it's out of an understanding of just how good and great God is, and really the sacrifice that Jesus made on the cross. Like, all of that was an act of love. All of that was an act of desiring to have a relationship with us and see his creation in eternity once we do pass into the next life. And so understanding that and just understanding the weight and the glory, and that's a reason to be thankful. We worship a lot of times because of experiences in this life, and I'm going to get to that later. But we also want to worship God just because he saved us. Like, he did everything already and set it all in motion so that we can have a hope and a future, and we can see him face to face one day when we have reached glory, and we have the assurance that we will be in eternity with a God who loves us and a God who we've already known, that we've already had a relationship with. Let me give a personal example. The Lord has been my source, right? So when I have been in times where I needed deliverance or provision or joy and freedom and those different things, experiencing God in those ways and just experiencing God as who he is, that awakens something in my spirit and in my soul, in my mind, will, and emotions too, that then align with his spirit and align with seeking after him and praising him by just literally shouting or saying, like screaming hallelujah, or like clapping my hands, because there's just no way to contain the remembrance or recollection of that, of those times where he has saved me and he has just shown up in my life and he has delivered me and he has provided and he has just been there. Even when like there were times where the circumstance didn't necessarily change right away, and I know that it was God molding me in that, and he was there with me, and he was my source, he was my rock and my foundation, and if he was not there, there was no way that I would have been able to get through that stage of life or that time in my life on my own. There are reasons and experiences that lead me and incline me to worship and to praise, and it's not hard to tap into that. It's not hard to just tune in with that, because I can just think back of thing after thing, circumstance after circumstance, where God has just shown up and just done what he said his word would do, or he has literally just carried me through and then brought me out on the other side stronger, better, more mature, sharpened, and equipped for what the next season had. So like through all of that, when I just think about that, that's where my heart, like even now, like I could cry out of joy, because God has been so good. And that's who he wants to be in all of our lives. But a lot of times we don't seek him in all of the ways and all of the attributes of who he is. So we never experience those things because we don't seek him in that way first. I posted a thread months ago that said exactly that. We don't experience God as provider and as a father, or as a friend, or as a healer, or as a deliverer, because we don't seek it. But if we did seek it truly, we would experience those things, because his word promises that and his word says that. And so I think many times as Christians, we just go through the motions of worship. We go through the motions of the worship experience. And a lot of people use it just as a buffer to know that they have a little extra buffer time before the word starts. But worship is where your heart is softened, where your spirit and your soul is realigning to the things of God, and you are seeking him in that moment, preparing your hearts to receive. And you can receive in worship. Like, you can receive before the word even starts, but then once the word does come, it's falling on fertile ground. And so it's not something that is just secondary or not important. It's literally, it's setting the foundation for the rest of the service. And so when we worship, we're not doing it just because we're going through the motions and it's just something that we do in church. Like, there's a purpose, there is a function to it. When it says where 2 and 3 are gathered, God's presence is there. God's spirit and his presence is there and moving throughout the room to do what he does and to do the things and to just be who he is. And that's available to every single person in the room. But a lot of times people miss out, and people don't even realize sometimes when the Holy Spirit is there, because their minds or their hearts are just in a completely different space and place. Worship is a place where we forsake all the distractions. We just forsake all of the things that have come up in our week or our day or even an hour before. And this is where we say, no, this is not me time. This is time for God. This is my time to worship God, to magnify him. I want to seek him. I want to glorify him. I want to exalt him. I want to thank him for all that he has done. Even if my morning maybe was crap, I want to thank him for all that he has done, because he is still good and this is his time. And through that, we set our hearts in the right posture and we get ourselves aligned in the right posture. And then God touches us. He lifts our spirits. We enter his presence, and in his presence is fullness of joy. In his presence, we find all that we need. So even though maybe this is just the hypothetical example, but like you're getting your family ready and it's hectic, it's crazy, you're pissed off at your husband or your wife or whoever, or your parents, and you get to church and you're like, oh, I don't want to worship, but you make the choice to forsake everything that has happened up until this moment, and you choose to tune in and to say no to your flesh of just having your mind and your emotions be elsewhere, but you're focusing on God. And you're saying, I'm going to lift your name up. I'm going to praise you. I'm going to worship you. And I'm going to seek after you in this moment, in this time. His presence will be there. And in his presence, you then have all that you need. You find fullness of joy and all of those things. So that's when you will experience his goodness, and you'll experience his grace, and you'll experience his mercy, and you'll experience his strength and all of the things that you need, because you're tuning into the source in worship. And this is, again, it's not because you are just singing a song or you are just doing like raising your hands and swaying. That's not what makes it worship. It's your heart. It's your heart. It's the internal. But having that moment and experience in his presence, I will guarantee you'll leave better. You'll leave feeling better than you came in, and you'll leave with a touch from the Lord. And we can't forsake having those moments in corporate worship, but we need to have our personal worship and our personal time, because just doing it once on Sunday is not enough. It's not going to give you longevity. It's not. So there needs to be, so that's like corporate worship, right? So now we're moving into the space of, what does your personal worship life look like? Do you have one? Is it consistent? Maybe is it not where, you would want it to be? Like, evaluate that. And if you don't have a personal worship life yet, just start. It's not scary. It's not intimidating. Just start. A lot of people, they love how they feel when they come into a church service on Sundays. You could feel that way every day of the week when you spend time in his presence, when you spend time with the Lord and just praise and worship and praying in his word. There can be a shift. Like, there are certain things right now that I am having to figure out in my life that are uncomfortable. And they're not, and it's just a part of life. It's just a part of adulting. It's just part of, being doing all these things. And I could stay discouraged, stay upset or sad, but because I have that personal time with the Lord and personal worship, I find all that I need. I find security. I find joy. I find strength. And just so y'all know, it's nothing crazy. It's just literally like life things. But it's just there are different things that when we are walking the day-to-day life, our day-to-day life should still include worship, should still include prayer, should still include the word, should still include his presence, because we don't want to be a Sunday only worshiper. We don't want to be a Sunday only Christian. And worship is not, like I said, it's not limited to just singing and dancing and shouting and all. Worshiping through all of your actions that you're doing. This is my worship unto the Lord. I'm doing this job, and this is my worship unto the Lord, and I'm doing this and everything in my life unto the Lord. So I'm going to do it in alignment with his word and his spirit. I'm going to do it with the right heart and intentions. I'm going to do it in the fruits of the Spirit, and that is my offering to the Lord in whatever area it might be. We need to come back to a heart of worship where it's all about the Lord. To be cliche, that song, I'm coming back to the heart of worship, 'cause it's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the thing I made it, 'cause it's all about you, Jesus. That is what I'm talking about. We've made all of these other areas of our lives idols, or all of these other areas of our lives about ourselves and what is just limited to benefiting myself or my family or whoever. But we've lost the sense of all of these things that I'm doing, or everything that I do in life, is unto the Lord. And it's going to be about him. I'm going to make it about him. It's a choice I get to choose to make whatever job I'm at about the Lord. Even if you're not working in ministry, or you're not, you have a regular 9-to-5 job, make it about the Lord. Be about the Father's business in that. In that you're worshiping God. You are magnifying him. You are elevating and exalting his name where you go and with what you do. And so we need to come back to the heart of worship, and worship in spirit and truth through our actions. But it first needs to start in our heart. And so I would encourage you, just take a minute, pause, reflect, and evaluate, where is your heart when it comes to this? Where's your intention when it comes to this area? And I would encourage you, press in deeper to a personal, weekly, daily worship moment, and just worship time with the Lord, and prayer time with the Lord, and just seeking him time. So yeah, I hope that you are encouraged by today's episode, and I will see you guys next week on The Secret Place.